until recently, I had never heard of the Skateboard Kid, and I decided to watch this for one reason and one reason only, and that's because Trevor Lissauer is in it. Trevor Lissauer played Miles in Sabrina, and he posted something about this on Instagram, and it occurred to me then that I'd never actually seen Trevor Lissauer in any films or anything other than Sabrina. And I'm a big fan of 90s films. I thought, alright, let's give this a go. Let's see what it's like. So I'm reviewing this from three perspectives. The first is me as a Trevor Lissauer fan. The second is looking at it from kind of 90s nostalgia, if you're looking for that kind of film. And then the third is just as a film in its own right. And I'll be honest, I didn't love it, but I'm aware I'm not the target audience, so I'm going to discuss more about that, and I'm going to kind of bear that in mind. But at the same time, there are definite rooms for improvement, but I was surprised to see it has only 2.8 out of 10 on IMDb. That is a really shockingly low rating. I didn't think it was that bad, but clearly it's not the most well-loved film. If you have seen it, or if you do check it out, I would love to know what you think of it. Certainly it feels kind of very classic 90s, low-budget film. None of this is with the acting, and I think it's relatively well shot as well. I think most of the flaw comes from the development of the narrative and the pacing. I'll talk more about that in a moment. It was released in the early 90s, 1993. Directed by Larry Swerdlove and written by Gary Stuart Kaplan and Larry Swerdlove. And as I said, we have Trevor Lissauer playing this character called Zack. And Zack encounters some not very pleasant individuals. Most of the characters in this, particularly most of the teenage boys, are really horrible people, and it gives it kind of a negative feel throughout the majority of the film. And Zack has moved to this new town. He doesn't know anybody, and these bullies, to be quite frank, with skateboards are, all over the place, getting in people's way, causing problems, and causing problems for Zack. But then Zack finds a way to change his situation because he discovers a talking skateboard. And I will say, I love the cheesy CGI of the talking skateboard. It's not great quality, but it is quintessential early 90s, and that's something that I really enjoyed. So I'm not a fan of skateboarding. I couldn't care less. The subject matter doesn't appeal to me, so I'm aware that I'm not strictly the target audience other than being a Trevor Lissauer fan. So I can't compare it to other skateboarding films. But I will say that the pacing was pretty terrible. It took a very long time to get to the point, and once it got to the point, I don't think it really utilised this skateboard, this talking skateboard, in the best possible way. However, I did like the personality of the skateboard, and I did think the skateboard looked pretty cool in a cheesy 90s way. So if you're looking for 90s nostalgia or that kind of early 90s feel, absolutely that ticks the box. It really definitely does. And then judging it as a film in its own, it's not great. As I said, most of the problems come from the pacing, no problems with the acting, it's shot quite well. And yeah, the CGI is pretty terrible, but in a fun, nostalgic way. But it just, not much happened. It took a long time to get to the point, and it's definitely character-driven by the character of the skateboard, and a little bit of Zack. He's not a dull character, but he's not the most interesting. For being a protagonist who's meant to carry the narrative alongside the skateboard. The character definitely could have been more interesting, but I still don't think it deserved a 2.8 out of 10. I don't know if the people reviewing that are people who don't care for skateboarding films and therefore are maybe not the target audience, as is the case with me, or if they are people who are skateboarders and have higher expectations and things that they expect. Either way, perfectly entitled to leave a review, but I'm just be curious to know where people's opinions are coming from. I think it could have been something better. There is a sequel, or at least a second film. I'm not sure if it's a direct sequel. Certainly, it doesn't have the same cast, but interestingly, it does have Dee Wallace and Andrea Barber, both of whom are brilliant. It was released the year after in 1994, and it has a higher rating of 3.8 out of 10, though half as many reviews and ratings. Maybe I'll watch it. Maybe I'll see what it's like. But I will say I'm not the biggest fan of the Skateboard Kid. Definitely needed more work, definitely needed a lot more attention to the actual narrative, but I don't rate it as poorly as some people.